to, just a reminder to just remain on mute so we can keep background noise down. You are welcome to use the raise a hand function when we get to the Q&A, so we can call you off mute if you have questions. And you can also use the chat feed the entire time. We've got staff members in who will be able to respond to questions in the moment as we go as well. Next slide. All right, our agenda, we just did our norms. We're going to share some joy and some shout outs. Ms. Stoller and Ms. George are here with us today, rocking our student support. So Ms. Stoller is going to share some student support information with everyone before I share some reopening updates. And then we'll have some Q&A.
So hello, everyone. If you don't know me, my name is Emily George. I'm the social worker. And today was Kindness Day. Wow, doing Kindness Day, the 10th one. It was virtual this year, and it hopefully was a really big success. So I just wanted to give you some highlights. So the 7th graders were writing letters to their future selves, as well as making vision boards. 8th graders also had shared a little bit of advice that they had for the kindergarten groups that they were with. So that was so cute. Let's keep going. There was a photo booth. Very cute. It's still open. I'll give you the link in a couple slides. I didn't pick these pictures, but I fully support them. It's a very middle school picture compared to the joy of the elementary kids, but that link will be shared so you can see the photo booth on Friday. But I will give you the link so you can keep taking pictures. And then we had Mandy Gonzalez, who she had starred in Hamilton. She also is on TV and was an original creator of In the Heights with Lin-Manuel Miranda. She was amazing, did some Broadway warm-ups for us, as well as shared about her organization that really is about belonging, which was our theme for Kindness Day today. Oh yeah, our theme for Kindness Day was together apart, community and belonging. So it was really just this space for everyone to come together, elementary school and middle school students. And there were a lot of activities that they did. One of them I wanted to highlight for you all, because I just think it's an amazing resource, is Netflix Junior is having Celebrating Black Voices book readings by the authors or famous people like Tiffany Haddish. So I just wanted to show those to you because some of the groups had done reading and art projects to go along with it. Here's our photo booth sneak peek. It's so cute. The little ones were so cute, we forget. The teachers in the middle school are saying we don't know how kindergarten teachers get anything done all day. They're just so adorable and ask a lot of questions. But here's the link to the photo booth. Please encourage our middle schoolers to take pics. A lot of these are elementary school kiddos, but also we were able to use the template from today to replicate a little bit of it in the Bronx. So Kindness Day is going to be expanding in the years. It's pretty awesome. So I really hope everyone had a great day, and thank you to everyone who helped out with it. It was super fun.
Yes, huge shout out to Ms. George and her team. Kindness Day is Ms. George's legacy at Girls Prep Lower East Side Middle, and she does an incredible job every year, and today was no exception. So yes, we will drop that link in the chat. I can probably pull it off of the slide deck for you right now because I've got it open, or actually we'll go forward. Ms. Lopez, if you can pull it off the slide deck and put it in the chat, I'll get us started with the grade level highlights. So let's go to the next one. Amazing. All right. So we have got some 5th grade shout outs. So for all our 5th grade families and 5th graders on the call, shout out to you. So shout out to all the 5th graders for their amazing world religion projects. We've been loving your presentations. Are so impressed with your hard work and dedication, from Ms. Swap and Ms. Colgan. Another shout out to all the 5th graders for showing up and showing out as leaders and role models in their buddy classes today. Shout out to all the EJS families and scholars for being so loving and kind to me this year. That's from Ms. Morin. Shout out to Somali for all of your hard work this year in ELA, also from Ms. Morin. And shout out to all our families this year. It has not been an easy 11 months. You receive emails, calls, and texts all day on top of your jobs and responsibilities. And we're so glad to have you as thought partners in the process. And that is from your 5th grade teachers. Yes, Mara, the presentations were incredible. And one other 5th grade shout out, and all 5th grade families should have gotten this announcement via email from me earlier, but we want to highlight Miss Chelsea Cooper, who has joined us for 5th grade ELA. I already see Natalie and Mara coming off and clapping and seeing a yes, Miss K in the chat. So obviously Miss K has already become a part of our community here, and we are so happy to have her joining us as our 5th grade ELA teacher alongside Miss Morin. She's originally from Wisconsin and has lived in New York City before, but has spent time in Shanghai. So that is actually where she did a lot of teaching to 3rd through 12th grades. And she has, on a personal level, wants you to know she's got 2 French bulldogs, and she loves to take them for walks on the wood trails and volunteering in her community. And we are just so excited to have her here working with our girls. So if you haven't met Miss K yet, just get ready because she's ready to meet you. All right, 6th grade highlights. Ms. George, you want to talk to us about those?
I sure can. Mr. LaRose shouts out his small group for meeting with him during lunch for extra help in all subjects. And small groups and office hours are all the rage. We love them. Shout out to Tiana and Kylie for pushing our discussions in ELA. Khalees, Alyssa, Tawana, Amaya, and Zadia for attending homework help. I'm sorry, I have to move all your beautiful faces. With Ms. Tufard. And Taina and Asia for attending their intervention groups for reading, advocating for some extra help, as well as Peyton and Edeline for their great participating in class, and all the 6th graders for reaching out for extra support. It is hard to ask for help, even if we know we need it. So extra shout out for that. Yeah.
Amazing, Ms. Stoller. You want to talk to us about 7th grade?
Absolutely. I can jump on for the 7th grade. So for 7th grade, the first shout out goes to Anastasia. Maybe not the loudest voice in the room, but definitely a powerful voice. The second shout out is Miss Jasleen for never being afraid to take academic risks, making her voice heard, and asking questions. Anissa for working hard and taking responsibility for learning since day 1. They see you, don't you worry. And then Nikayla, Ayana, Tia, Mackenzie, Hattie, Dana, Micaiah, and Tamila for raising the bar the past few weeks. And then last but not least, Alexis for her amazing history projects.
And one final 7th grade shout out would be to 7th grader Ashley Walter, who this week represented Girls Prep Lower East Side Middle in a national discussion hosted by NYU, where students spoke about Black Lives Matter and why that is important to talk about in schools and what it looks like in their school. And so Ashley represented our community on a panel of students from across the country. She spoke so eloquently and powerfully about this really important content and topic and was a fantastic representative for our community. So huge shout out to Ashley for representing us and for having a really powerful voice in a really important conversation. All right, Ms. Lopez, I can see you're trying to get a snack in there. You want to talk to us?
It's all good. It's all good. I have to eat these olives before my family gets home because apparently no one likes olives but me. So 8th grade, shout out to Danila, Lorraine. So I'm gonna assume that's Saray, not Sarai, because we have 2 people. Zanaya, Emily, and Savannah for pushing themselves in small group. Shout out to Dakota, Caitlin, Danila, Kaylee, Biani, Larissa, Layla, Caitlin, Brooke, Lorraine, Jayla, Torres, Negron, Jenna, Joanna Brittany and Tati Jones for being on top of your high school applications. Shout out to Miss McCullough for these like intricate things every week. They're always like a different shape. Shout out to Amory, Zaria, Jalissa, Saray, Jayleen Fagundo, Savannah, Anna Nieves, Sarah Nieves, Janelle, Atia, Dana, Samantha, Torres, Isabella, for prepping your portfolios and auditions for high school. This is a very, very important time in 8th grade season. Shout out to Azaria, Jada Collymore, Sky, Dallas, Imaya, Michaela A., Tyler Nelson, Lauren, Leilani Tanko, Katie, Melina, Anaya Sarai, and Alex R. for amazing effort this week. I also want to shout out, Danila. I saw her this morning in Kindness Day with her little sister, in her little sister's camera. And it was like they were like hugging the whole time. They were dancing. They did the warm up together, Mandy's warm up. I was like, who is this girl with her sister in the background? Then I looked and I was like, oh, that's Danila. And then I looked on the photo booth and they took a picture together hugging, which is then now you'll notice on that last slide, they're actually hugging. And I didn't even know she had a little sister.
Oh my God. There was so
Sisterhood to the extreme.
It was so great. It was so great. And on the high school note, just a shout out to our art teacher, Miss Craigman. She has been working furiously to get our 8th graders' art portfolios ready. They've been meeting with her for extra office hours on Wednesdays. She's not even teaching 8th grade right now. She's teaching 6th and 7th grade, and she's been also teaching 8th graders in terms of their art portfolios so that they are ready for that high school process. So shout out to Ms. Craigman for that. All right, student support updates, Ms. Stoller.
Hello, everyone. So I'm going to go over some student support updates, just some information to relay to all of you, and then some just supports for at home. So the first thing to touch on is just small group interventions. Since we got back from right before break and right when we got back from winter break, we have done lots of screeners. We had our MAP assessments, got a whole lot of data to help support drive some of our groups, which are very targeted to provide opportunities for additional supports based on the needs that our students have. The one thing we want to emphasize that's really important about these is the attendance for these sessions, as we work on skills during the small group sessions that cannot always be addressed during the core content instruction classes, especially for those students with mandated services on their IEPs. We work towards those goals. We make bite-sized goals for the group so that they are working towards building their capacity to continue to grow as learners. So if your child has gotten an invite from their teacher, it could be Ms. Thomas, or it could be one of their core content teachers that they are seeing outside of the core class, please make sure that they are definitely going. 5th grade has interventions at 11, 6th grade has it at 3 o'clock, 7th grade at 10, and then 8th grade at 1 o'clock. So definitely, if you know that your child is in there, push for them to go for sure. Secondly is, with all of the work that we do with our students, we do what's called progress monitoring. So seeing how are our students doing. For students with IEPs specifically, teachers are tracking their progress using all of the multiple data points that we have. These include class exit tickets, evidence from work submission, data tracking, which can be applicable for both whole class and during intervention groups. These progress updates occur 2 to 3 times each trimester formally. And then at the end of every trimester, they get sent home. So the first 2 trimesters, they get sent home during family teacher conferences with the report cards. And then at the end of the year, they would get sent home. Usually we mail them together, or they bulk them together, but last year, and then most likely this year, they'll get sent by the POC or the special education teacher that your child is working with. So if you ever wanted to know how they're doing, you could always reach out in the interim, but know that at the end of the trimester, those officially go home for progress updates. Ms. Strong, begin, or whoever's got there we go. And I just wanted to touch base about supporting scholars that may have a learning disability or ADHD, which we know is a pretty common diagnosis for students. and just figuring ways that we know that remote learning is a bit of a struggle, especially those that have needs that are outside sometimes their own control. So ways that we can support them at home, things that also their teachers are using in school as well. Our reading software, auditory books. So these can improve comprehension, also just sparking interest for engagement as they're hearing it and they can read it at the same time. Some resources that are really great with Overdrive. It's actually an app that you can download on Google Play or the Apple App Store. It is also a website, so you've got 3 options that you can use that. Audible, there are audiobooks on Spotify, so if you have an account on Spotify, you can also do it there. There's also a website called Hoopla, and the website is there as well. This allows you, it's a free source, you just have to have an existing library card. So if you do want to check out any audiobooks to help support either on your own or with the novels that are within the classroom, definitely options to check out. And yes, Ms. George, definitely YouTube as well is a great resource for that. There's also the dictation or voice to text softwares. A lot of it is built into our Chromebooks that they can use. If you are using the Chromebook from school, it is built into the Google software. There's also apps on Google Play Store or Apple that you can download if you're using a iPad, which we know for school, we want to make sure we're using the Chromebooks, but obviously like if things, there's other tech available. Dragon Dictation is a great one for that. This helps with just supporting our students, like the engagement if they are, the focus of like the screen and what needs to get put onto the documents, they can actually voice what their notes are and things like that to help support, and that it keeps up the engagement within the classroom. Things to do for the environment is just making sure that you're mimicking a school environment as much as you possibly can. We know that sometimes is really difficult, but little things can also help, like limiting distractions or external stimuli. So although you may not have an extra desk lying around in the house, just making sure that things are not around to get distracted by it. The big thing is no additional text. So if you've got that cell phone, make sure it gets like put away and focus only on the one piece at hand. Another great way to help support students at home is creating a visual checklist or visual schedule. Even having a visible timer so that they can see when things start and end keeps the students on track as they're going through this school day. We know it's really long, and sometimes it's nice to see when they're going to get that break to transition to another classroom or to another subject. Ms. Strong, if you can pop over.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then just a few more. I know there's a lot here, so anything to help support, what we can do to help our kids at home and help you guys. So other things, if possible, I know it's so cold, so maybe not right now, but going outside for lunch break, they get that hour to do so during the school day right now. So getting out, getting some exercise, that really actually supports any of our students that have ADHD. Getting out some of that built and pent up energy is super important. Down below, actually in the 4th one with the movement break, that kind of ties in together with the movement break. Something you can utilize together with the visual schedule is like, if we can't get outside, go use websites like GoNoodle. Quick 5-minute like burst activities or dance breaks that they can do just to get some of that pent up energy out so that it can regain the focus. Another great thing is positive attention, reinforcing good behavior, focusing on the child's strengths and efforts. We know sometimes that's, in the throes of things, but always emphasizing where they're doing well, so that they're kind of on repeat to help support them as they're going through the day. Additionally, class time definitely feels stressful, especially if there's getting so much information. So just reminding students at home to review the information, the new content or coursework that they're learning when they're in more of a relaxed state. So maybe it's rereading what they've done in ELA or in science or history, doing some repetition of math problems and word problems that can help support, but when they're not so in the throes of the classroom. And then back with visuals, I actually put the the picture on the wrong slide, that should have been on the other one with your visual schedule. But again, with the visuals, also with things that they're doing in school. So if they have keywords for math, like what's positive, what's negative, like making visuals that can be put around their workspace at home, so that they have references that are hard copies, so they're not always flipping back and forth between different tabs, but they do have anchor, like their own mini anchor charts that they would normally have in school. And if you don't have a printer, these can easily be done with copying them from supports at home, and making them colorful and making them all theirs. And lastly, we know that a social emotional piece, I know Miss George is definitely on board with this one. Things can get frustrating, and we know that. And so it could be because academics, or it's just the overload. So building in times to take a pause from what you're doing, working through breathing exercises. I've listed a website here that has great resources and great examples of things that you can do, but definitely super supportive to keeping, just keeping sane in all of what's happening. So, but I'm happy to, if you need any other resources, please feel free to reach out. I'm always here as a helping hand and support for our girls.
Thanks, Ms. Stoller. Before we move into reopening updates, I know that was a lot of information and want to make sure that families have an opportunity to just ask any clarifying questions or just some calls for support, right? So if it's something that you want to know more about, just want to give a moment if you want to put it in the chat or use that raise a hand feature to come off mute. We'll give some time for that before we move ahead. Also, hi, Ms. Vasquez, I see you. So good to see you. Great question in the chat around just like blocking different websites and our school programs and filters that will help us do that. So I actually saw Caitlin Omis pop on our call. She works for our home office, Managing Director of Student and Family Affairs. I might actually have your title wrong. Sorry, Caitlin. But this is an ongoing conversation that we are having. As you know from Ms. George's session on digital safety, we do have programs called Gaggle and Go Guardian that help us monitor student internet activity and where they're going and flag things for us if it's concerning. But we're also continuing to take feedback from you all as we're learning about websites that students are able to access. We are working with our IT support teams and our different programs to figure out different ways to remove sites. I wish it was a little easier and faster than it is, but it's definitely something that is in the works. And if you're seeing, right, like in here, I'm seeing that Discord and Twitch, I know that those are on our list right now that we're working on, but please continue to send those to us, to Ms. Lopez directly, so we can add those to the list. Ms. Omis, I don't know if you want to say anything else about this. I know it's on your top of your to-do list right now.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat too. You can feel free to send me those other websites as well. In addition to Ms. Lopez, we're collecting them and putting them into our IT support request. Part of the reason why the process takes a little bit of time is because during our initial rollout of tech, it was like get devices and internet into the hands of our kids so that they can access school. But now we are actually able to monitor everything that's happening online as much as possible. And so we also know that you guys are working really hard to keep your scholars focused and doing the right things, but that's also, there's a lot going on in the home during the day. And so we will be collecting those websites. So right now I have YouTube, Snapchat, Discord, Instagram, and there's one more on my list.
I think it was twitch.com.
Twitch, yep. I'm gonna put those directly onto my list, but I'll also put my email in the chat. If you have any questions about anything, feel free to reach out.
Yeah, and I hear you on YouTube being a challenge, right? Because there's so much that can be accessed on YouTube. There's also like educational videos and instructional resources that are sometimes used on YouTube. So we're working on like, how do we create filters to ensure that they can access like the educational content that we might need them to in terms of an instructional video, or even like our chat and chew videos that we post on YouTube. Like, not that kids are watching those, but still having it fully blocked can sometimes, you know, also create challenges. So we're working on that. I got another question in here about, got it. Okay, so Miss Moore, I see Miss George's is chatting back, but I think that the big question is like, if I feel like my child might have ADHD or something might be going on, how do I go about seeking, you know, an evaluation or a referral to determine? Ms. Stoller, do you just want to speak briefly to who they could reach out to with questions?
Yeah, absolutely. In terms of seeing if your child has ADHD due to any concerns that you have, usually this is something you bring up to your pediatrician. They will, because it isn't technically a medical diagnosis, so they would go through, what they will end up doing is sending forms for the teachers to fill out about their performance in school. There's also a parent form, but that does start with your child's pediatrician.
Awesome. Keep the questions coming in the chat. Ms. Stoller, Ms. George are on here and can continue to respond to student support questions as we move forward to talk a little bit about our path to reopening. And I know it's not the holidays anymore, but that ELF reference is like how excited I am to see your students in person, FYI. So just sharing again our key dates in our path to reopening. So over the course of the last few weeks, we surveyed families once again to follow up on your decision for your learning choice in the next window. With that was also information about a testing waiver, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more on the next slide. And that's also going to be discussed at the town hall. But that went out to families. This week, we are working on and have been over the course of the last week and a half, looking at our numbers, trying to follow up with families and make sure that we have an accurate count of who is interested in hybrid learning. And so that we can confirm those seats with families, ideally before we go out on winter break. We do have a family town hall tomorrow. And we have then on the 23rd, when we're back from break, we're going to have a hybrid student family orientation on the 23rd at 5 p.m. So any families that are coming back in the building, the majority of the students signed up are not new to in-person learning. So this is going to be largely a refresher for most people, but there are a few families that are new. Either way, we want to have a touch point where we can share further details on the 23rd, because on the 24th, which is the Wednesday, there is going to be another network-wide family town hall. And so that would conflict with our typical time for chat and choose. And then March 1st is the date that we are set to be back in the building in person with students. So again, these are just important upcoming dates as we are on the path to reopening that we just wanted to stamp for everyone once again. You can go to the next slide, please. Awesome. So as a reminder, students and staff who are coming back in the building must submit a negative COVID test result, and the testing window is February 21st to the 28th. So if your scholar is going to be coming back in the building, you need to have a plan to get a negative COVID test confirmed within that window of time. You will be submitting it to Ms. Denolis. She's our Assistant Director of Operations. And so we need to make sure you're planning ahead for that. We will be happy to drop in the chat, or actually I'll send it out with the recording via Facebook, just some testing site resources, but also to support families. We are hosting testing both at Boys Prep and Girls Prep Lower East Side Middle. So if you want, you and your scholar can come get tested. Again, if you're in the Bronx, you can go to Boys Prep. The dates are February 21st and 22nd are the dates in that window where testing is going to be offered for between 8 a.m. and 2 p.m. Also in Lower East Side Middle, we're going to be offering it on site on February 23rd, 8 a.m. To 2 p.m. So again, if there's a testing site close to your home, there are lots of resources. We'll share those again, but we also wanted to provide this for families to ensure that everyone can meet this requirement. And as I mentioned, the other really important piece about testing is that if your scholar is going to return in the building, we have to have a testing consent form because we will be testing our staff weekly using a Miramis saliva-based test. So it's not an invasive nasal swab, it's a saliva-based test, and staff will be tested weekly. But we need consent forms from all scholars because we will be doing randomized saliva-based, I know it sounds so gross to say, but like saliva-based testing for scholars based on the microcluster guidance. I know that's a mouthful. I'm going to tell you a little bit more about it on the next slide so that you understand kind of what those thresholds look like. Awesome. So again, as you know, with the reopening of schools after the initial closure around Thanksgiving, the guidance for testing and closures shifted a bit in the city. And so we are following the microcluster zone guidance for testing scholars on site. And so what that looks like is that the percentage of students that would be, again, randomly given the saliva-based test, not a nasal swab, is based on the infection rate in the zone surrounding the school. And so more will be shared about Miramis testing in our upcoming public prep town hall. But we will also drop a link in the chat in a moment to a document that just explains a little more about Miramis testing. A lot of the questions from families are just concerns around like, I don't want someone like nasal swabbing my 10-year-old when I'm not there. We totally understand that. And again, this is a saliva pool testing, so it is much less invasive and would be able to happen right on site with our testing site coordinator who will be there doing our testing for staff. So again, we'll be following the microcluster guidance. We will be doing the randomized testing based on the infection rates surrounding the school that tells us how frequently and what percentage we need to test. And we will talk a lot more about it at the public prep town hall tomorrow and on the 24th. So that leads us to thinking about the plans for reopening. So I just kind of carved the pathway, right, of what's been happening. We've surveyed families, we're calling to confirm, we're looking at our numbers. And in doing so, we've also started having a conversation about what is our ideal state in being able to support all of our families and all of our students as we go into this final window for an in-person option. So I had the opportunity to meet with our community council leaders earlier and talk through some of the ideas that are on the table right now for our model. And I want to be able to share all of this with you all as well. So in looking at our numbers and thinking about our priorities, we want to make sure that our in-person model has 0 students and families on the wait list. We feel that it is critical in our commitment to you that any student who needs to come in person is able to come in person. Currently, based on our numbers, there is higher demand in 5th grade than there is, for example, in 8th grade. So there are a lot more open seats in the higher grades, and there are families that have been waitlisted sitting on 5th grade. And so that's caused us to start to think flexibly again about how do we make sure we meet the needs of as many families as possible. We also want to make sure that our model continues a focus on high quality remote instruction, because we know that even in our full hybrid model like before, the majority of our students, so more than 70% of our students, are still going to be learning remotely full time. And so we want to make sure that in offering an in-person option, we are also continuing to have really high quality remote instruction, since our numbers and our capacity for in-person learning leaves a lot of our community at home and online. We also want to make sure that our in-person model privileges co-teaching. So one thing that was challenging in our previous hybrid model was that not every class was able to have 2 teachers in a traditional co-teaching sense. Students got to see both teachers, but there were times when classes that were being taught in person or remote only had 1 teacher. And we really have learned that the best way to maximize learning, especially in a remote world, is to have a 2-teacher model as frequently as possible for breakout rooms and student engagement. We also really want to make sure that we're maintaining the student-teacher advisory cohort relationship. So in our last hybrid model, one of the things that was challenging and feedback we got from families and students was when rosters shifted and students went from being just, with their MA, their Maya Angelou cohort, and they became pod 1 or remote group 1, that was just challenging socially and challenging for students who've already navigated a lot of inconsistency in the year. And we want to keep our remote class sizes as small as possible with the least disruption to the current schedule. So in thinking about our previous hybrid model, our remote class sizes were at averaging 30 students or a little more per class, whereas our typical model is between 20 and 25 students. And so we want to think about how do we keep those remote class sizes as small as possible and have the least disruption to our current schedule for consistency and relationships. So I say all that to say that as we've reviewed the numbers, these are the things we've really kept in mind as we're trying to figure out what model makes the most sense for the Lower East Side Middle community and the Lower East Side Middle families. And so if we go to the next slide, we'll talk a little bit about a potential model that would look different than the hybrid learning that we had in the first window, slightly different. So it would still offer 4 days a week of in-person time in the building for scholars. None of that is changing. It would still be, the building would still be open for scholars 8:30 to 4:15 for scholars to be there, any family that needs their scholar to be in the building. But we are exploring a kind of learning center option that would be staffed by Girls Prep Lower East Side Middle teachers and staff with the support of after-school staff and school aides. In this model, students would continue to learn remotely, so remote instruction would continue to happen, but students would be in the building receiving additional support with their schoolwork, with tech, with access to Wi-Fi, with all of the things that are sometimes hard if you're working at home and also trying to have students full-time in school. Students would remain in class with their advisory. All of their teachers would remain the same. All of their advisors would remain the same. They would continue to log on for class with their MA, MO, their advisory group, not with a different roster of students. It would also allow for minimal schedule changes for all students, and particularly for students who are remaining remotely. Teachers would be in the building, in the Learning Center model, on a rotation, right? So that kids still have touch points and supports and extra academic time with their teachers, but would again allow teachers to, we would have kind of a rotation flexibly of those staff while your support staff, your leadership team, your operations team, everybody else is in the building consistently with your kiddos every day. And breakfast and lunch and recess would continue to happen daily, just as it did in our hybrid model for scholars before, which we know is key for socialization and key for relationship building. And so while we have not finalized, right, we are still trying to get our actual numbers hard confirmed this week so that we can make the decision that's best for our community. But because this is a model that we are exploring, and because the numbers that we have right now indicate this is most likely going to be the way we can meet the needs of the majority of our families, I wanted to share this option with you so that you know what's on the table and what's being considered. So again, we are still bringing students back in person. We are still aiming for March 1st. Our hours are still going to remain the same. Your scholar would still have access to their teachers and additional academic support. They would still see me at greeting every day. They would see all of the people that keep that consistent community force with them. But this model, again, would look slightly different in that remote learning would continue to happen even when students were in person in the building. And I know I see some questions in there. I'm going to get you through 2 slides, and then I'm going to open it up for Q&A so that I can make sure that we get to answer questions that are coming up. So with that, we want to let you know that across our network, and you'll hear more tomorrow from our CEO and our superintendent just about public preps models and how we're trying to support all of our families. One thing that is definitely happening across all campuses is that we are hiring some learning center aides. We are hiring additional staff to come in person and support with virtual instruction for scholars. And so we are posing this, we want to pose it in our community first because good people know good people. And so if you know of anyone within our community that is looking for a temporary position, it would start the week of February 24th and go through the end of the year. We would love to hear from you and have referrals come our way. Again, these positions are being offered across our network to support our scholars. And so there are positions in the Bronx and positions in the Lower East Side. Joanne, it would be full-time, although our recruitment team can talk a little more to if there are flexible models at other campuses. But at least at Lower East Side Middle, this would be a full-time Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 8:20 to 4:25 day. And we're going to drop the link for people to apply in the chat. It is a temporary role, right? It's only through the end of the year, and there is an hourly rate for the role. But if you know anyone that is interested, again, we want to open this up within our own communities first. We know that there are families who have lost jobs during this time. I know we've got alum that I've reached out to who are on a gap year right now in school. Shout out Nia Wallace. I don't know if Malia's mom is on here, but we've got a lot of strength within our community and want to leverage that to support in-person learning as best as we can. And I saw the links going in the chat. Thank you so much for that, Ms. Lopez. All right. Next slide gets us to what's next before I open up the floor to you. Again, we have not finalized the model right now. And so we are crunching those numbers. We are looking to make final confirmations with families this week. And we'll share more details with you all in that in-person orientation. That's going by in-person, I mean, it's a virtual orientation for students coming in person that will happen on February 23rd. And then again, more information in the family town hall on the 24th. So if you're on the call and you're like, this might change my decision. If we end up in more of a learning center model, I may want to rethink what I am choosing for my scholar. Please reach out. Ms. Lopez is going to be our point person for fielding those emails. Please reach out to her directly if you feel like this, if we have a shift in our model, that it might change your decision. Additionally, Community Council gave great feedback that it was very unclear to families that this is the last window of the school year to opt in for in-person learning. We've been saying there's 3 windows, and then when the city closed and we extended closure till March, that pushed our second window back. But this is the final window for in-person learning this school year. If that was unclear to you and you're like, wait, I thought I had another chance, I need to speak to someone about the decision that I made, also please reach out to Ms. Lopez. She'll field those and get that information to the right people so that we can confirm your choice. And again, our goal is to meet the needs of as many families as possible and to not have a wait list because we want to make sure that we can meet the needs both of our families at home and of our families that need to come in person. So with that, I know we're close to 6 o'clock. Again, I know we started a little late because of the darn Zoom link issue that I swear we will get fixed. But I am happy to hang back and take questions on this from you all.
Did you get mine?
I'm looking in the chat right now. I don't know. I think that might have been someone asking if I got a message in the chat. So.
Ms. Strong, there was a question about able to switch if a parent had opted for remote and they are requesting for blended now.
Reach out to Ms. Lopez. Again, because our window for signing up was technically closed, but again, we want to know if something is shifted and we want to work with as many families as possible to accommodate you. So I can't make any guarantees in this moment as we're finalizing the numbers and finalizing the model, but that would be our goal. So please reach out to Ms. Lopez as soon as possible if you know something has shifted and you need to change your choice. Ms. Belliard, I see, says, how do we know how many and what teachers are coming back? So all of your scholars teachers will be teaching your scholars classes, and they will all be in the building able to support with academics, both in the morning during arrival and breakfast, during lunch and recess, during the intervention block. So if your scholar is in the building, they will have access to teachers across all their content areas, and none of their teachers are changing. So it would be all the same teachers.
Ms. Strong, it's Joanne. Can I come off mute and just say my question?
Please.
So there are certain periods during the day when Esther has like not a virtual class, like kind of a, you know, she basically, you know, does whatever she wants at home. So the question is, what would happen during those periods if she was at school?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I hear Esther in the back, like, stop, I'm playing a game during that period, Mom. Don't ask.
Exactly right.
Yep. So that's a great point. So for scholars who don't have a small group during what is our intervention block, if they are in person, the great news is they are going to be able to have a touch point with adults to get support with their homework, to make sure that they're not diving down a black hole of an internet game and losing their focus for the day. There's going to be additional support with work. We're also looking at like enrichment and clubs. Ms. McCullough is potentially going to be pulling some small groups during that time around some additional college knowledge stuff. So it is a great opportunity for students to be in the building, particularly those who don't have a small group intervention right now at that time, because they would get in-person support and would not be playing, what's the game Esther loves? It's not Fortnite, it's something else.
Oh, it could be any, it could be Roblox, could be Fortnite, could be Among Us, you know, all the things.
Among Us, that's the one I hear about. That's one I hear about. Okay. So that's what that would look like for Esther during that time.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. And then I saw a private message about extra help for students who are struggling. That is also 100% the goal of having students in the building. And so even though instruction would largely remain remote, there would be touch points in the morning for in-person students to have small groups with their teachers. There would be additional time during the lunch and recess block for office hours support. And there's also going to be staff in the room, in the pod with scholars, so that if they are struggling with the content, if something goes wrong with Zoom, if they're getting frustrated, there's going to be someone there to provide some academic support and tech support if they're struggling. And so that's absolutely something top of mind for all of our kiddos, but especially something that we feel we can address best with scholars when they are in person. And I really, really hope Chelsea is back in person because I miss her little face. I have a picture of her on the first day of hybrid learning holding her book. We had a little time in my office about A Wrinkle in Time. Yard time, yes, Joanne, there is going to be outdoor time as frequently as possible. So it'll definitely be built in for recess daily. And then again, barring that it is like sleeting or freezing rain, I even think playing in the snow is kind of fun sometimes, as long as the court is not too slick. They will be outside and they will be playing. Yep, so the question then is, what would the schedule look like in person class? Would the students go to school every day? So the schedule is largely going to look exactly, it looked very similar to the way that it does now. So scholars will have ELA math, science, history, and a petals class every day. And they will also have that intervention block in their schedule every day. The one thing that will shift, regardless of the exact hybrid model that we choose, is that the schedule will look similar to the way it did when we were in hybrid. So the start date for advisory is going to be a little later for everyone, like it was when we were fully hybrid, to account for us getting students in the building. But again, it's very similar to exactly what scholars had the last time that we reopened. And they would be in the building Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Wednesdays, as they have, will remain remote for everyone. They will remain at home, and it will largely just be small groups and office hours in the morning with the asynchronous time in the afternoon. So that won't change regardless of the in-person model that we finalize. Just check in the chat to make sure that I didn't miss anything. Looks like we got them, most of them. Yes, Joanne, similar to when we were open hybrid, lunch will be in the classrooms and recess will be outside. So we will not be going back into the cafeteria. As you know, the DOE announced very recently that they are also planning to reopen middle schools. And so we will have our counterparts at Eastside, at least their middle school students, returning. And we will not be utilizing the cafeteria at all. It'll just be classroom for lunch and then the yard for recess. And we luckily have a great plan with Eastside that allows us to share that outdoor space while keeping the students separated and socially distanced in a safe way. Are we going to have summer classes? So we do not offer summer school, but we do have resources and connections that we can provide for families who are interested in summer programming for their scholars, but it is not something that we are offering. Do we have summer homework? Great question, Mara. Yes, you will need to read every day, and you will need to practice some math on IXL. So you will 100% have some summer homework. Got to keep your brain sharp. while also giving you some time for some fun. Got to keep your skills up. So I see a question in the chat about outdoor tents. You're welcome to come off mute if you wanna surface that question.
So I was asking because when she was in class, like there was a few times it was raining. I start work at 8 o'clock, so it's very hard for me to stay there. The longest I stay is 15 minutes, but they were standing in the rain, and the other school had a tent. It's open, it's not sealed or nothing, but just to cover them from the elements, you know.
Absolutely. And you're talking about the tents that are up in the courtyard near the 5th and 6th grade entrance?
Yes.
Yeah. So we totally hear you on the elements and the rain piece, because we definitely don't want our scholars out there even with umbrellas, and realize the tension over schedules. And so typically if it is raining, what we will try to do is bring scholars in to wait when we can in the stairwell area down where we can socially distance in the art gallery if it's really pouring. But tents are definitely a good suggestion to make sure that if scholars are out in the elements, that they've got a place to get out of that. So again, we will typically, if it's really inclement weather, we will try to bring any scholar that's here early in and allow them to socially distance. But that is like based on capacity. So it's not a permanent solution by any means. But thank you for surfacing that.
Yes.
We continue to work with Eastside around that outdoor space and making sure our kiddos have a place to wait.
So, I mean, if it's because it's financial, I mean, I don't know everyone's budget, but tents are not very expensive, and each parent could put $3 down to get some for the kids that are in school. Because, I mean, we're keeping them safe from corona, but they're getting sick from other stuff, you know?
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I think that that's definitely something I'll bring back to our ops team. And I appreciate you servicing that and coming at it from that community lens. We can definitely put a plan in place to make sure that our kiddos are taken care of. And I appreciate you servicing that. Absolutely. All right, everyone. Well, oh, yep. Is Somali on here? Or is it your family? Is it you? Is it the child or the family? Either way, good to see you. I see your name in the chat, made me happy. So right now, this week, what we're working on is just finalizing our numbers. So the final model for our in-person learning hasn't been ultimately determined, but we are working to finalize that this week. Based on our initial numbers, we have determined that the best way to meet the needs of most of our families may be that kind of hybrid learning center option, which would mean students would still be in the building the same number of days, the same hours with their with our staff, but they'd be learning remotely. So the instruction would still be happening for all scholars remotely, but we would be able to have any family right now that's asking to come in the building in. It would help us not have to turn any families away. And also, again, based on the numbers that we see right now, potentially allow us to serve more families while keeping remote instruction really strong for the over 70% of the community that's remaining at home. And so I look forward to seeing Somali in person. I hope that's still her choice. I loved having her in hybrid when we were open previously. Great question around what's the protocol if someone tests positive for COVID. And what I will make sure to do is that in our next chat and chew, I'll get our lovely visual out. But essentially, if someone in the community tests positive for COVID, we immediately contact what's called the Situation Room, which is a joint task force for New York City Track and Trace and the Department of Ed, who advise us on exactly what next steps that we need to take. Generally, the protocol, that person, obviously, if they are on site, we have a protocol to make sure that we can get them off site safely. We then determine what needs to be closed based on the level of exposure. So generally, one positive case would just result in the closure of a classroom or a pod of students. If there are 2 or more positive cases in a school community within a week, the general guidance from the Situation Room, it results in like a 24-hour closure of the building temporarily for a full investigation. And then the Situation Room and the Track and Trace team advise us on building is safe to reopen, or out of an abundance of caution, we extend it to make sure that there is no community spread. So again, the general guidance is that one positive case would just result in a closure of a classroom or a pod, but the building would stay open and school would stay going. And that if we had more than one positive case within a week, again, our first mode is to contact the Situation Room, who will give us guidance based on their track and trace department. But it generally results in a temporary closure and an investigation to just determine what needs to happen next. And the great thing about our Miramis testing, which again, you'll learn more about in the Family Town Hall, is that even with the saliva testing, they can determine out of the pool of people tested exactly where the positive case, who is positive of the people tested. And that enables us to be able to act really quickly and take the necessary precautions to make sure that everybody stays safe. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready to close us out. I don't see any other questions coming up in the chat, but if you have other questions that do come up, please don't hesitate to reach out. Again, if you want to know more about the models that we're considering, or if you want to just talk to someone about your choice, please feel free to reach out to anyone on the call. Ms. Lopez is really our point person right now for most things with rosters, but you can always get me on my email. I'm happy to speak to any of you as well. And Ms. Tonko, thank you for putting that note in the chat. Please tell Leilani I said hi. I can't see where you are in the group, but I know you're here somewhere. Please tell her I said hi and to have a great rest of her week. And Ms. Moore, last question. I just saw your hand go up, but I don't know if it was an accident or if it was on purpose.
Know about the rapid testing sites? Yes, I want to know about the rapid testing sites. You can get test results back a little bit faster.
That's great. And you're saying you have resources that you'd like to share, or you would like us to share the resources on the rapid testing sites?
If you have any, I would like for you to share, because the one that I knew about was Gouverneur. They had a ban out, but it has not returned, and they don't know when it will be back, and they gave same day results.
Got it. Great. So we can definitely get those resources out to you. Our network has been collecting lots of information around testing sites in all the boroughs, but especially near our campuses. So I know they're going to share a lot of testing info tomorrow at the Family Town Hall, and I will make sure that those get emailed out to families as well, so that you all have access to that.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yep. Good night, Miss George. I see your children are pulling your leg. I hear you on that. I hope everyone has a fantastic night. Again, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have questions, and we will talk again soon. Take care, everyone.
Good night, everyone. Happy
Good night,
Friday.
Natalie.